So you want to create ambient beats. Maybe you just want to learn how to inject some rhythm into your ambience or add some drums on top of pads. Maybe you just want to learn some new patterns for your chill or down-tempo music. What's up guys, my name is Chris from Signs of Life, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to create better ambient beats. Let's get right into it. So here's what we're going to talk about in today's video, better ambient beats. The first thing that I'd like you to do is to establish your goals. Figure out what type of beat you want to create. This is the research part of things, right? So artists like Echo Season, Parallax 5, Solar Fields, Martin Non-Static. These are all great examples of artists who fuse beats with ambient really, really well. So while you're listening to these artists, I want you to focus on three things. Number one, tempo. What type of tempo are they using? Is it a really fast tempo? Is it really slow? Maybe you're listening to the track and you just use a tap tempo to figure it out. That's the type of thing that you want to have locked in before you start to create beats of your own. The second thing is rhythm. What types of rhythms are they using? Is it a straight rhythm? Is it offset? Rhythms and beats, they all have feel to it. So you really want to dive in and figure out what type of rhythm that it is you want to recreate. The third thing is, what types of samples are they using? Are they electronic samples? Are they real world drum samples? This is really helpful information. So when you go to recreate samples of your own, or you go to gather samples, at least you kind of know what you're looking for, right? So that's the first thing. Establish your goals and figure out what type of beat it is you'd like to create. The second thing is gather your samples. Spend time building drum racks and loops so it doesn't slow your creativity. Now for this, we're going to switch on over to the DAW here, and I've got an example track queued up. So let's listen to this example track, and on the other side, we're going to talk about the second point, gathering your samples. Here we go. So as you can see, I have a full track here full of kicks, snares, hi-hats. I've got a bass, pad, sine wave, the whole thing, right? But I want to draw your attention to the drum racks that I've created beforehand that really help speed up the process, right? So I have a whole rack full of kicks here. I tend to go for the really deep kicks, like process sine waves, things like that. I think that the acoustic kicks kind of get in the way of the overall sound of the track. So anything on the low end, I'm a total fan of, right? So I've built all these drum racks full of kicks and snares. You can see I have a bunch of snares here. And what you can do is almost shorten up your snare samples. Like take, for example, this clap right here. What you can do is shorten up the sample, and you can actually turn up the fade out like this, and then use the transposition to almost make this like a click, right? That might work as a snare as well. Like you can go crazy as far as modifying real world drum samples. So a lot of these have come from actual samples inside of sample packs, and I've just modified them, right? Same goes for the hats. So I have a bunch of different hats here, and these are all samples that I've customly modified to make them sound almost like clicky and poppy in a way. But you know, you can hear how this all plays out, especially when you listen to the entire track. Right, so all those hats are all stacked up. This is the process of gathering your samples, right? So you really want to make it easy for yourself. So when it comes to being creative and actually making beats, it speeds up the process and it makes your life a lot easier, all right? So that's the second thing, gathering all your samples first, so you don't spend time looking for samples while you're trying to make beats. So the third thing is start simple and build complexity as you go. Whether you've never made a beat before or you're an established beat maker, it's really important to start simple and then build complexity over time. So back here in the DAW, I've created 6 different rhythm patterns out of these kicks, and we're gonna go over them one by one just to kind of show you the progression of how complex it can get. So the first one is a 4x4 rhythm. This is the simple 4 on the floor pattern. I'm gonna show you this real quick. And as you can see, it's just 4 kick drums, quarter notes all the way across. That's what we call it 4x4, right? So every single beat, you get a kick drum. And you know, this track, it might call for that at some point. And this is maybe how I started, but it's really good to establish this as a solid rhythm. You hear this beat a lot in like techno music, deep techno music, house music sometimes. Like, it's just 4 on the floor, and that's how you do it. Just set your grid to quarter notes and draw them all the way across. Now let's shift over to the second one that I use a lot in my own music, the triple kick. Now, the triple kick is made up of 3 16th notes repeated 3 times. So you set your grid to 16th notes, and this is what I do. I just draw 3 16th notes, and then I duplicate that twice more, right? And so this creates sort of like triplet rhythm. You hear this a lot in the early Signs of Life records. I really love this rhythm. It's super cool. And it works really well, right? Because it works well without a snare, it works well with a snare. I'll put the snare back. Classic Signs of Life right there. Nice. So that's the triple kick, right? Use that to your advantage. I think it's a really great alternative to the 4x4. And yeah, it'll serve you well, especially when you're searching for that rhythm or searching into the realms of the offset. For the next 4 kick styles, I'm gonna remove the camera here so you guys can see exactly what's going on. The next one is called the delayed kick, and this is a kick where you're expecting the kick to fall halfway through and it doesn't happen. Instead, I've moved the kick over right before the second snare. Check this out. So as you can see, I've added 2 kicks before the first snare and then moved that kick over. That's why I call it the delayed kick. And it happens right before the second snare drum. Now a variation on that would be the shifted kick. Now this adds more notes, plus it adds some ghost notes. What are ghost notes? Well, ghost notes are where you use a minimal velocity to sort of emulate when a drummer like barely kicks down on the pedal, right? And so what they do is they add a little bit more rhythm, but not too much to get in the way of the main rhythm points inside the beat. So check it out. See how lowering the velocity creates sort of a ghost effect? Especially here at the end. So the kick is doubled, but it's not too intrusive because you have the ghost notes. So that's kind of nice. The next one is one that I use a lot. It's called an extended kick. Check this out. So I've doubled the length of the bar here. So it's a 2-bar MIDI clip instead of a 1 bar. And I've completely removed any kicks from the first bar, except for right at the end, I put a ghost note. And then I've shifted over this one to be right there before the 3rd or 4th snare. So this is a really great way to add some space, especially when we get to the last tip, call and response. We're gonna talk about this in a second. Here's another variation. We're just gonna call this extended 2. With a little more complexity and some added ghost notes. So the next thing we're going to talk about, my top tip for you,
If you struggle creating rhythms like this, what I want you to do is slow down the tempo and turn on the metronome. On my channel, I have a video called Sequencing Secrets. I'll leave the link for it up here in the card. In that video, I showed how to create a sequence by slowing down the tempo so you can really hear what's going on. You can do the same with rhythm. Let's go back to the DAW here and I'll show you what I mean. So back here in the DAW, we can create a new MIDI clip here. And what I'm gonna do, right now our tempo is at 84 beats per minute. I'm gonna slow it down to around half, so like 40 beats per minute. And now listen to the beat. That's really slow, right? But you can clearly hear where that snare comes in and those hi-hats are. And so it's almost like a cheat code, right? Like you can go in here and I've made a new MIDI clip. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go to draw mode. And now let's start drawing in some kick drums around what we think this rhythm might be. Check it out. Ghost note right here. There we go. So once you have your rhythm established, you can go back to the original tempo. Check this out. Just like that, right? So by slowing down the tempo, you really increase your chances of actually creating a rhythm that sounds just like what you wanted to. Because maybe you couldn't hear it, maybe the tempo was too fast, but it's a great trick. So I highly encourage you to use this technique. So the final tip that I have for you here today is to think like a drummer. As producers, I feel like we get caught up and focused on too many different things. We focus on the pads, we focus on the bass, maybe we're focused on the sequences, but we don't often think like the actual instrumentalist in the band. So thinking like a drummer means using techniques like call and response to build more complex patterns around our beats. I'll show you what I mean. Let's go back to the DAW here. And what I've done is I've added another track called call response. And what that does is add a little bit of call and response to the beat that we already made. Notice how it completely changes the vibe and the feel of the track. Check this out. Right? So it adds a whole nother dimension. And especially when the kick starts playing off the snare and those hi-hats are glistening and then all of a sudden you just get this. That's call and response, right? It's really taking one thing and having another thing answer to that call. It's a beautiful technique and I highly encourage you guys to use that in your own ambient beats. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. This tutorial was so fun to make and I hope you found it useful and I hope you found it inspiring. So if you want more tutorials like this channel is on Patreon. I do tutorials every single week on that channel. You can go check it out. You can join for as little as $3 a month. And yeah, you'll get tons of extra tutorials. There's tons of presets on there. I also do one-on-one ambient coaching. You can find me on there. Check out my website as well. It's www.signsoflife.com. I'll be back with more tutorials very soon. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. In the meantime, take good care. And as always, keep your heads in the clouds and your feet planted firmly on the ground. My name is Chris from Signs of Life, and I'll see you guys in the next one.